to focus on the issues that we've had with conservation and reconstruction. It's also going to look at the Italian contributions to the site as well as international contributions to the site. As you can see here, this is a collapsed building. I believe this is a photo of the collapse, when the roof of the House of the Gladiators collapsed, which was obviously extremely unfortunate. Now, to quickly go over some of the things that we see, we do see a lot of issues from the sites, generally from poor management, so humans. Originally, we had a bit of mafia influence in the region, so we had things that were stolen during that time. The mafia would also essentially kind of force themselves and their workers into the site as well so that they could get paid. And as you would expect from people associated with the mafia as well as local building companies, it's not just about reconstructing what you see or reinforcing what you see. You've got to be much more delicate with the sites. And very often they were using materials they shouldn't have. And it was a bit shoddy, so we did have a couple of collapses and things breaking down as a result. And so we've seen this at things like the House of Maliga, the House of the Mosaic Atrium, House of the Gladiators. It's not just the mafia that are responsible for thefts. There are estimated around 600 particularly important artifacts stolen. And even small-scale thefts occur quite a lot. So there's even an article in your readings booklet about a woman who had chiseled out a mosaic tile and tried to steal it and take it with her. So this stuff is obviously an ongoing issue that we've just got to be mindful of. We've got vandalism, sometimes intentional, sometimes by mistake damage, but we can cover that in tourism a bit more. But in terms of vandalism that's already there, I still don't really understand what makes someone want to vandalize something so precious, but there we go. Some other issues with the sites, but these aren't human related. We've got some natural hazards as well. So guys, there has been seismic activity since 79 AD. And that obviously is going to have, there's going to be some kind of, concerns and issues around that and making sure we can keep Pompeii and Herculaneum safe. From what I hear, Mount Vesuvius is not dormant, so it's a matter of when it decides to go again as well, and how we're going to protect the site when that happens. Now we've got the weather and elements, so things like wind, things like rain, things like acid rain, things like sunlight can all have a bit of an issue. So obviously your wind and rain can be an ongoing, for these old buildings and stuff, can be ongoing. Just the elements are just tormenting and chipping away and working at some of these things, and can damage what we've got. The sunlight, if sunlight gets on frescoes, it can fade them, and we do see some fading of our frescoes as a result of exposure to sunlight. The other one is pigeons, and the idea that their poo can actually be quite damaging for some of the sites as well. Really interesting to deal with the pigeons. They actually bought a couple of hawks and trained them to essentially remain around the site of Pompeii, and it was the hawk's job to basically hunt and get rid of and scare/kill the pigeons that got close to the site. That's pretty amazing. Alright, so our Italian contributions here. I'm not necessarily going to read all of these out to you. They are in your readings. But overall, early on, Italian contributions weren't great, guys. Okay, so the site was mismanaged. We had a lot of issues, and that's really on the back of the Italian contributions early on to the site. So, but there has been an improvement over time. Generally speaking, guys, if I was to summarize it in one sentence now, it's largely a contribution between our Italian bodies and our international bodies That's kind of their contribution, the Italian contribution. Okay. One of the big ones that I am going to get you to remember, that's why it's in purple here, is the Great Pompeii Project. So that is a collaborative thing as well, and we are going to talk about that more later. Just very quickly to go back to before I move on, this pledge, the Italian government pledge of 35 million euros, as a rough estimate, that's about 57 million, like roughly 57 million Australian dollars. So international contributions. Again, we've already looked at a couple, but to know some of these is going to be really, really important, guys, okay? Largely speaking, international bodies have been, good for bringing funding and new academic understandings of the site, new technologies, specialized programs and stuff like that. And they are often working with the Italian government. Okay, so here's some other lists here. As well as the Great Pompeii Project, I want you to remember the Herculaneum Conservation Project. That's going to be pretty important to remember. And again, the international body pledged 75 million euros to the site's conservation. That's around 122.5 million by Australian dollars. So, Great Pompeii Project. Okay, essentially, it originally was meant to be a small scale kind of initiative, and then kind of grew, and it's just been ongoing since then. Okay, so they've obviously got some aims here and achievements that I'm going to leave rather than just read through, and we're going to go through the Great Pompeii Project more in class. But this is something that I would like you to know about and be able to remember. And then lastly is our Herculaneum Conservation Project. Again, I'm not going to read through it all, but it's a big effort here with the site of Herculaneum, which is often overlooked and ignored compared to Pompeii. Okay, so another thing of this, the Herculaneum Conservation Project is a really good example where we see Italian contributions and international contributions working together, that collaborative kind of aim here. And guys, it's been reviewed, the Herculaneum Conservation Project, and really, really highly commended. The UNESCO director essentially said if we could take what they've done with the Herculaneum Conservation Project and do it elsewhere in sites around the world, it can only be a good thing. Now that's paraphrased, but that's essentially what was said.